It's after midday, and I didn't expect to be on this early, but like the good Boy Scout I was and military guy was, the saying is be prepared. I wanted you to be able to see the presentation, and I did not, in fact, let me see here. I did not, in fact, upload it as yet, but I'm just going to go over a history in Africa when it comes to policing, and then I will take you into what we had to do as part of the Jamaica Diaspora Crime Intervention and Prevention Task Force, and to give you an idea of what could happen in any country of Africa where there's stability and where the government is willing to try something new, so that you're not overrun by youth violence and youth who feel like they're being disenfranchised. Okay, I want to bring this up. You can still see me, correct?
That is correct. Please continue.
Okay, all right. Let me just get this thing going. The name of the presentation is Policing for Safer Cities and Smarter Communities. And we'll cover mostly the Safer Cities portion, which leads to the harmonizing in your various communities. Now, you know, each of the maps that I pulled either had something to do with chronic malnutrition in Africa, food shortages, violence, or just general conflict between different groups. I can tell you that in 2010, all the gangs of Jamaica, which numbered almost 400, had to be neutralized because they were literally taking charge from the government. The government ministers were known to congregate with gang members, and when it came to election time, they were gang members who organized to get different folks to the poll. The types of policing that we saw in Jamaica back in 2010 involved the military. And there was an incursion into an area called the Tivoli Gardens area. And that incursion, according to the former opposition minister, who's now deceased, Mr. Siaga, killed over 155 people. However, the official numbers remain at 73. This incursion also involved the US to some degree. And you know, we took a look at what occurred to try and see if we could stem the tide of the violence that were occurring, that the security forces, army and police, were meting out to the population, and the fact that the population, in attempting to fight back, perform various assassinations and other violent countermeasures against the security forces.
And let they be judged, you know.
In Africa, we know that the history shows plural policing in African societies. That means policing in traditional African societies was the responsibility of an array of agencies, institutions, and occupations such as age-based groups, the elders, hunters, priests, cultural and religious groups, and fraternities. Contemporary police forces were created by the colonialists. They were established during the colonial era as instruments of colonial pacification, domination, and exploitation. Prior to colonial rule, many African societies evolved with the political system having dominant ruling dynasties that maintain personnel that perform both policing functions. The contemporary challenges of conflicts, insecurity, and the ineffectiveness of state police and other security agents in Africa has led to the resurgence and adaptation of traditional policing mechanisms, strategies in modified forms by communal, ethnic, and religious vigilante groups to guarantee security.
Okay.
Now we see the same thing occurring in Jamaica, where to avoid the military having to go in wholesale into communities and virtually wipe out all the so-called bad guys, there's more involvement from the religious side, and there is a lot more talking that is being done. I'm going to skip over a couple of things that gets into the politics, but the bottom line with trying to introduce a safer cities and smarter communities is you have to have a pacification, not just of people, but of governments, where the government is not anxious to kill its citizenry. Okay. There have been attempts to reform police services in many countries of Africa, Nigeria, South Africa, Kenya, and post-conflict countries like Liberia and Sierra Leone. You have specialized police authorities with limited jurisdiction, such as drugs, traffic, environment and sanitation, wildlife and conservation. Corruption and money laundering, as well as organized crime, you're seeing more specialization in law enforcement occurring. Because like Jamaica, Africa realizes, and when I say Africa, I'm not demeaning the fact that you have many countries of Africa, but the fact is, with corruption, that kills budgets, and it also kills programs that are supposed to be benefiting what we refer to as the underserved communities. There's been an increasing demand and attempt to devolve policing to lower fears of government and community. This is with the modification that's going on. And that would mean that instead of a national police, you try to bring the police either by county or by the smaller towns and cities. There's also an increase in government support for community-based vigilante groups that operate in crime endemic communities. And that is where we feel that our Safer Cities program can negate that. In other words, you don't want vigilante groups going around cutting people's heads off or whipping people to the point of death and creating a bad image for the country. What is great is there's now an emergence of regional associations of police chiefs in West, East, and Southern Africa. Currently in Jamaica, and I'm just doing the comparison, the contrasting, there are states of emergency and zones of special operation. Now, when we took a team, formed this team back in July 2016, the Crime Intervention and Prevention Task Force, the idea was to have the government abandon old habits and embrace a US standard for safer cities and smarter communities. And the example we used was Los Angeles, California. And the reason we used LA was that one Jamaican who was a police officer in Jamaica, he was now in charge of the homicide and gang division of LAPD, and his name was Captain Peter Whittingham. The states of emergency are pretty much you're blocking roads and you're preventing the movement of people. That's very restrictive. And in any situation where a person is trying to avoid a roadblock or is trying to run away from being, I guess, interrogated in a kind of stop and frisk type operation, it leads a lot to violence. And usually violence is from security forces against them. Zones of special operations we found to be more advantageous. You set up an operating team within a specific area that is endemic to a lot of violence and gang operations, and you try to have on that team special skill sets that can instruct and teach skills to the unemployed population and gang members within that community. I'll get more into that in a second. For us to have a successful Safer Cities program, it begins with the diaspora. The diaspora has to engage with, and I'm sure there are nonprofit agencies within African countries that receive exchange of letters from key people in the diaspora here in the US. And the idea was to write to the national security minister as well as the foreign affairs minister. We also, back in December 2016, had passed here in the US Public Law 114-291, which is known as the Caribbean Engagement Act. This was this act was created so that Caribbean people could engage with their congressional people, they could engage with the State Department, they could engage with USAID, and in doing so, their suggestions were heard, the problem solving was brought to the people, and since we have diaspora groups that know of the issues and they can educate foreign affairs staff, it was a key move to bring us on the inside and not keep us on the outside. So imagine if all the countries of Africa could engage in that same manner, whether you're in the US, whether you're in Canada, whether you're in the UK, or what we call the ABC countries. And if those governments, in granting a variety of programs to underserved communities and to assist the violent youth programs wherever they exist, with your help, to me, that would be a lot more effective than the USAID going to Nigeria or Kenya or somewhere else and saying to a quasi-government agency, here's some money, like they do in the case of Jamaica and the National Security Ministry, where they get millions of dollars to set up law enforcement programs that in fact seemed inept and did not serve the people. Jamaica has been in a constant lockdown state in certain neighborhoods to avoid the murders. Interestingly, all other crime statistics are down. and crime seems to be controlled when it comes to rape, robberies, and these other crimes. But because of the presence of the security, it would appear that the murders are up because people are fighting over less that's available to them. And these people are the gangs. We find that the murders is not perpetrated against innocent citizens, and I say that carefully, because citizens who engage in crime and the organized crime, I should say, are subject to blowback from the very people they try to control. Just to give you a broader concept of a Safer Cities program, back in the 80s and 90s, Los Angeles was mired in killings between the Bloods and the Crips. I'm sure you have heard about them, as well as the Mexican Mafia. And this young Lieutenant Peter Whittingham developed an idea to change how the groups viewed each other. He sold it to the commissioner, and he, along with roughly 3 dozen LAPD members who had various skills, carpentry, masonry, AC repair, as well as coaching skills, licensed coaches with basketball, soccer, and any other area available, whether it was tennis or whatever available in the park. They organized and employed, say, around 100 to 200 young citizens to play sports. It wasn't just a matter of playing sports. It was a matter that whatever sports you were playing, you were going to be in an organized league. You were expected to come in to the park at 9 and you'll be dismissed, let's say, at 6. And I'm just giving you general examples. So in other words, you come into work. While playing, let's say, over half the day, playing, practicing, honing your skills, the other half is spent learning some kind of job skill. This program was 8 hours a day, 40-hour work week, and at the end of the week, you receive a stipend to meet your living expenses. In other words, they were trying to take care of Maslow's hierarchy of needs: food, shelter, clothing, what have you. The program included counseling. While you're there in the park, you are isolated from crime virtually and from the bad leaders who perpetrated the criminal activities. And if they found troublemakers in the midst, those troublemakers were counseled, warned, and extracted from the group. Extracted meaning that they would be arrested on something they did, and they would go to court and they would be going off to jail. So you can see that a program like this, for your unskilled, you're unemployed, and let's say you're dealing with citizens ages 18 to 30, if you were able to do that in, say, most African nations that are unemployed, I cannot begin to imagine the impact it would have on the control of crime, the control of youth violence, and to get people to be, and I saw where somebody spoke earlier about entrepreneurial skills. You could have quite a few people that could form teams and could have effective teams going around doing plumbing, doing carpentry, masonry, fixing AC units, or even participating in what seems to be permeating Africa these days, which is private security.
I just want to, honorable speaker.
The
Herb, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Want to see if you could try to wrap it up maybe in about 3 minutes, 5
3
minutes.
minutes. Okay, not a problem. You know, the teams that we took to have the discussion with the government was headed by Dr. Rupert Francis. It had an attorney who was there to address the justice system. We had retired police, we had retired military, we had psychologists, we had staffers from the local Diaspora Institute that married up with us to explain the program and to make the pitch. Of course, one key person that we had to work with was the National Integrity Agency, and that's because these type of programs, if funded, there are corruptors out there that feel that they should be able to make some kind of profit from these programs, and we did not want to fight with any government or quasi-government officials. That pretty much gives you an overview of the program that was conducted in Los Angeles. Now, to do this kind of program, Peter Whittingham, who's now retired, is also available, and I know that he's been trying to get approval to perform this program in Nigeria. So if anyone from Nigeria has an interest or anywhere else, these are the things that our team has expertise in, and we could talk about how to go about, effectively getting teams formed and going into various communities to help the police. We want the police and the military to do this. We want the community to see another side of them, that they're not just enforcers. And, when you have your name is the Jamaica Constabulary Force, the force was formed after a riot in Morant Bay in Jamaica. And I'm sure the British used the same techniques and systems throughout their colonies in Africa back then. So today, you need a police department that serves the people and not are out there to injure the people. And we noted with regret the shootings recently of peaceful protesters in Nigeria. And we're saying that is them against us. And we have to change that dynamic. Pretty much that concludes the presentation.
I appreciate it.
Questions?
There'll be some questions after our next speaker, unless we had one speaker that was unable to join us because of the network challenges. But our next speaker is Dr. Beach Malcolm, who has an MBA from George Washington University National Law Center. He completed his doctoral studies, in mergers and acquisitions with a PhD degree in business administration in marketing from University of Phoenix. He is the former president of the National Business League, founded by Booker T. Washington in the 1900s. Since 2002, he has produced the annual ProBiz Small Business Procurement Conference, which attracts thousands of federal, state, and local contractors seeking opportunities with government and private sector procurement officials, as well as AfricaBiz, which promotes bilateral trade, between Africa and the US. Dr. B, who is affectionately known as Dr. B, was the Washington, D.C. project director in the award-winning National Capital Minority Business Opportunity Committee funded by the Minority Business Development Agency of the U.S. Department of Commerce. He is the past two-term chairman and CEO of the District of Columbia Chamber of Commerce, one of the largest business membership organizations in the metropolitan Washington, D.C. area. He served as the procurement consultant for 2 years to the Washington Convention Center